All right, going through another TV guide. This one's from November 11th of 1967. Did you know they were making TV guides back in the 60s? I did not. I figured 70s, 80s for sure. Obviously we had TV in the 60s. I just didn't know there would be enough content for them to produce TV guide magazines. So my channel mainly focuses on the 70s and 80s, but I thought it'd be fun to go through a couple of these. Yeah, there couldn't have been that many channels broadcasting at this time, even if this was before your time. So this was before my time. There's going to be some gems in here. There's going to be some fun things in here. And obviously there'll be some shows, maybe Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie. We're going to learn something new like we always do. So let's check it out. Not sure who this young lady is, and looks like her info is covered up by this mailing label. So, all right, let's look inside here. 15 cents for this thing. As usual, I'll note some things that I think are notable. I'll probably skip some things that you think are notable, so cut me some slack. Wouldn't be a TV guy without cigarette ad. Maybe I should stop saying that because everybody watching my videos is going to get sick of hearing me say that for every video. This is a cute ad for baby food. I think this is going to be out of Massachusetts, so it'll be interesting to see if they tell us anything about that market or the channels there, but I guess we'll see. Beer commercial, we got cigarettes, we got beer. Now we can sit in our easy chair and watch some TV. Here's a write-up on Carol Channing. She was a fun sort of comedic actress. Probably pretty popular in the 60s. Was definitely around well beyond into the 70s and 80s. Pretty sure she showed up on Love Boat. This is funny, and this is why we're looking through these old TV guides. Some show called Androcles, Caesar and the Lion. Guessing that was a TV movie or something. Google it and tell me. Repair set frauds, that's interesting. So yeah, this would be the early days of TV, especially for a lot of households to have a TV. Probably in the 50s. But certainly by the 60s, a lot of households would have it. Color TV was probably in by then. Won't linger on a lot of these articles. Check this out. New appetizers, mini snacks. Appetizers. Onion, cheese, and crescent rolls. That's pretty bizarre that they were making stuff like this all the way back in the 60s. Feels like an 80s gimmick to me. All right. And yeah, this is a little thinner than your 80s TV guide, but then again, the 70s TV guides were kind of thin too. It wasn't until the 80s where they got that square bound that we might be used to if we're old enough to remember. And it's interesting that they have a Boston, Massachusetts address on here. Wow, they had the letters page way back in the 60s. It's interesting. So rundown of some of the movies. All right, here we go. Oh, I guess not. Sports specials on the week. We'll hopefully spot some of these as we go through it. And yeah, this is before my time, but I'm sure I'll recognize some of the stuff, and maybe you'll recognize some stuff that I don't. Yeah, so this TV guide is serving the Boston area and some other areas up in Massachusetts, New Hampshire. Wow, that's wild. Some of these only have a couple channels. So even Boston, which would have been a huge market, had 6 channels. Probably ABC, CBS, NBC, what would become PBS. Looks like it's called Educational at this time. And then a couple VHF channels. So that was all you had to choose from. All right, we're starting off Saturday morning. Right off the bat, we see some things we recognize, such as Captain Kangaroo. So again, this was 67. We got a movie called Ma and Pa Kettle. Just seen who was in that movie. Wow, looks like maybe Saturday morning cartoons were not a thing. Maybe they were. We'll keep looking here. Because they were definitely making like the Hanna-Barbera cartoons in the 60s. Maybe I'm just not seeing them. They're right in front of my face. Casper was probably a cartoon. Mr. Magoo. Okay, we got a few here. Kimba. Flintstones. There we go. So maybe they just didn't come on super early like they did in the 70s and 80s. Peter Potmus. Yeah, that was definitely one of those Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Hopalong Cassidy. Probably be a lot of westerns during this era. Superman Aquaman cartoon. How good would that be in 1967? King Kong. I wonder what that is. I doubt that's the movie, or I would say so. So maybe it was a cartoon. College football coming on. Lone Ranger coming on at 1. Wow, they did this all the way back then. Full roster for Princeton and Harvard. College football teams, that is. So this is November. Seems like all the ones I've done so far are in the fall. America Gorilla in the Philippines movie. Wow. Whole close-up on some horse racing stuff. Boston's air pollution. Gad about Gaddies. I've never heard of that, but that's a great sounding name. Maybe it's just about a guy going fishing. I don't know. Green Acres. See, we've got some shows here that we've heard of. Carol Burnett was already on the air. Just seeing if there's any guest stars that I would want to call out. So this is already into the afternoon of Saturday. Star Trek. Probably would have been first run. 6 o'clock on Saturday night. McCoy, Kirk, Spock. What a great show that's lasted through the ages. Well deserved. Yul Brynner movie. All right, let's see. In the evening on Saturday, we got Lucille Ball. We got Country Music Carousel, Jim and Jesse McReynolds. I'm telling you, though, we'll come across some names we recognize. And if you're a little older than me, you probably might recognize some of these. Jackie Gleason Show. I think this was like a variety show. This wasn't the Honeymooners. Yeah, Julie Andrews, guest star. Escape from the Iron Curtain. So we got some propaganda movies back in the 60s. My Three Sons, we've heard of that one. Lawrence Welk, of course. Population Problem. Beauty Pageant Teen, Miss Teenage America. Jimmy Durante, I've heard that name, and Sandy Roberts. We're probably this is a good movie. I've seen this on what's it called? Turner Classics. Jane Fonda, Rod Taylor, Sunday in New York. That's a good movie if you ever if you like old movies. Hogan's Heroes. That was such a funny, great comedy show. A lot of these I saw in reruns in the 70s and 80s. Hogan Heroes was, in hindsight, the concept is pretty insane, but it was a fun show. Petticoat Junction. A lot of people love that. Beauty Pageant doesn't come on till 10, so the kiddies can go to bed. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see. I guess we'll find out if these channels completely go off the air at a certain time. Looks like they pretty much do, so check this out. If you don't remember, if you're not old enough to know, there was a time when the TV channels would just sign off. So if you were up at 3 a.m., you better read a book or something, because there's going to be static on your TV. Looks like they signed off around 2 and came back on at 6 in this era, in this market. All right, Sunday morning. It's like maybe some more cartoons and stuff on Sunday morning. That's pretty cool. Little Rascals. Little Rascals is older than we think. I think that was in the 40s and 50s. I think those ran as shorts at the beginning of movies and movie theaters, much like the Looney Tunes and so forth. So these probably would have been reruns even in 67, but great, timeless, great show, Little Rascals. Lone Ranger, that probably would have been huge to watch back in the 50s and 60s. Adventure show called Forest Rangers. Again, a lot of the stuff's going to be on in prime time, so we may not linger too long on some of these daytime shows, especially on a Sunday. Wonder if NFL was that big back then. Looks like Notre Dame was playing on Sunday. That's kind of weird. All right. Just scanning through here. Mr. Roberts, not Mr. Rogers. I think Mr. Rogers did premiere in either the late 60s, early 70s. And if I skip past it, forgive me there. Yeah, here's pro football, Giants and Bears. I'm sure there weren't that many NFL teams in 67, certainly not as many as there are now. I doubt I'd recognize any of these names, but here's the full roster of both of those teams in the TV guide, which is kind of funny. NFL pregame comes on at 1:30, so maybe back then they didn't start NFL until 2. Looks like it. Looks like maybe there's just one game to choose from if you were living in Boston. Yeah, it's interesting. There's not as many channels, so it's just not as much to look through. Yeah, looks like there's some later games too. Browns, Packers, Dolphins, Chargers. So plenty of football to watch on Sunday, even way back in the 60s. Laurel and Hardy. So now we'll get into Sunday evening. Lassie, we've probably heard the name. Huge show. Probably first run at this time in 67. Sunday night would have been a good time for that to come on. Gentle Ben is that old? Wow, I did not know that. I thought Gentle Ben was like a 1970s thing. But us children of the 70s definitely remember Gentle Ben. Walt Disney's World movie Pollyanna. Yeah, it's a Sunday night show, Gentle Ben. Ed Sullivan came on Sunday nights. I did not know that. Johnny Mathis, The Turtles. You gotta be kind of old to remember some of this stuff, but hey, that's part of the fun, right? Just looking at some of these other shows. Smothers Brothers. They were definitely big in the 60s around that time. Bonanza. Great show. Still holds up. Yeah. Bonanza was, and a lot of shows back then had a moral to each episode. So it wasn't just a story, the good guys and the bad guys. There was really a moral involved. So that's certainly not something that has survived. But it had a little more depth than most of the stuff you'll see probably since the 90s and up to now. Because they were trying to do more than just tell a story. Hot Seat, Mission Impossible. That's the show that the movies are based on. Yeah, Martin Landau, some actors that hung around certainly much longer. Got their start back then. Johnny Carson was on Sunday night. I wonder if that was like a rerun. Yeah, it does say rerun. Weightlifter Paul Anderson. That's funny. He was one of the guests on Johnny that night. Yeah, see, once again, sign off at 12. You watch static till 6. Not maybe no ads or not many ads in this, or not as many as the newer ones that I've been going through. So now we're into the weekdays, so these will be a little repetitive. Mr. Rogers was on. Looks like he came on at noon at this time in this market. Yeah, that had to be one of the earliest. I'm not sure exactly when he premiered, but it was in the 60s. See what else is on a weekday morning now. Today Show, wow. Captain Kangaroo, that'd be good to watch in the morning before you got to get on the bus. Dream Girl, that doesn't ring a bell. Mickey Mouse Club was on. Romper Room, people refer to that. I don't know what it actually was, but I know it was a popular kids show. General Hospital was already on. Man, they got you started early back then, watching soaps at 9 a.m. In the 80s, soaps usually came on around noon or so. It is interesting to see how there was a decent amount of variety. You would think with not many channels, but even back in the 60s, there's a decent amount of variety. Dick Van Dyke Show was on. I wonder if that was like a daytime show or if that was like reruns. The Fugitive. I feel like some of these might have been reruns at this time, by the time 67 came around. I Love Lucy. Bombers B-52 movie. Woody Woodbury. I feel like that rings a bell. Merv Griffith. Wow, he was around back then. I think of him as an 80s person. Dennis the Menace. I think this was like a live action little half hour, kind of like Leave It to Beaver. So there's been cartoon versions of that as well. Looks like maybe they had Monday Night Football back then. Mr. Ed, Talking Horse, if you don't know. Fairly popular, much like Lassie. Car 54. There's another Mr. Ed. Superman Adventures. That was the old George Reeves Superman. Gilligan's Island. I feel like that would have been first run at this time. We all know Gilligan's Island. It's a great beloved show. Economics in the Public Interest. I'm sure they were solving it all in 1967. Please Don't Eat the Daisies. F Troop, heard of that. Twilight Zone, probably would have been first run. So Monday night, get your mind bent by Twilight Zone. Sea Hunt. McHale's Navy, similar to Hogan's Heroes, kind of jokey military stuff. .30 Science Show, Ice Show, Frank Sinatra songs. Must have been a couple of hour specials or something. The Monkees, there you go. That was a great late 60s show. Classic, timeless. Gunsmoke. Did you know there was like 26 seasons of Gunsmoke or something like that? Pat Boone Variety. Let's just see who might have been on there. Nobody I've heard of. Lucille Ball comedy show. That's not I Love Lucy. It's probably another show she did. Honeymooners. I think that came on way before 67, but I could be wrong. Andy Griffith. See, these are the shows we love. Timeless. Again, the Andy Griffith shows usually had a little more moral to it, especially with Opie and stuff. So those were fun, great shows that still hold up. Psycho on TV. That's pretty good. Carol Burnett coming on at 10 o'clock. Man, it's pretty late. I Spy. Big Valley. Well, I love that show. Again, I caught it in reruns in the 70s. Lee Majors, Linda Evans. Great show. Great Western. Gunsmoke, better written in hindsight, but I really liked Big Valley. Once again, getting late at night. There's really not much to choose from. Ride the new Apollo moonship. Guessing it's a toy or something. Three Stooges Popeye. So this is Tuesday morning. Probably was on Monday and I just missed it. I love when they have cartoons. They don't tell you which ones. Saw that in one of the other TV guides. Biochemistry lessons. You could tune in. Learn how to mix up some chemicals. Beverly Hillbillies. I think I already mentioned that. As the World Turns. So a lot of the same soaps that a couple of them are still on. Cartoons. Willie Whistle. This would have been the afternoon. Let's see if there's any other cartoons. Looks like if you came home after school, you'd have to watch Willie Whistle and not much else. Because if you're a kid, you ain't watching Dick Van Dyke. Dear viewer, you're interested. Please don't eat the daisies. Okay, so that's that show. It's like a family show with a big dog. Folk guitar at 6. Or Flintstones or Mr. Ed. So a lot to choose from there. I'm not sure if like prime time started a little earlier back then or not. It seems like there's some decent shows on. Starting more at 7 than 8. I could be wrong. But here is I Dream of Jeannie. Great show. The female lead basically carried that show. She was the star. Barbara Eden. Another one of those shows that holds up. Garrison's Gorillas. Jerry Lewis. Pat Boone. A lot of variety shows. I bet that got old, especially as a young person. Watched a bunch of weird adult variety shows. Red Skelton, I think, was essentially a variety show as well. This guy's like the local news guy, I guess. He gets a giant full-page ad, which is pretty bizarre. Just looking at some of these, and some of these are kind of funny to see in hindsight. It's always easy to look back, though. NYPD drama, that's interesting, because, you know, in the 90s we had NYPD Blue. Not much on Tuesday night. And if there was, maybe I skipped something that was interesting. All right, and yeah, not a lot of ads. So part of the fun of the 70s and 80s ones, we've seen some good stuff in here, but part of the fun of the big ads, sometimes featuring stuff you never heard of before. Mr. Rogers at noon again. I did not see Sesame Street. I don't know if it was maybe not on in the 60s. Maybe it debuted in like 71 or something. I don't know for sure. Dick Van Dyke, Match Game. So they were definitely experimenting with game shows back then for the TV format. Seeing what would land and what wouldn't. Here's that Androcles and the Lion. Musical drama. Starts at 7:30. Yeah, it seems like the prime time was slightly different back in the 60s. What in the world? That kind of rings a bell. Here we go. We got hockey promo. We got Lana Turner. What a great promo ad there. F Troop, Twilight Zone. I wonder if some of these were on like multiple nights of the week or something. Lost in Space. A lot of the shows that are still classic probably came out around this time. That's pretty funny. Tony Randall. Looks like he's trying to play some smooth guy, which is not a good role for Tony Randall. Sorry, Tony Randall fans. Pro Hockey. Beverly Hillbillies. Second 100 Years. I wonder what that's about. Dial M for Murder. He and She comedy. Mariette Hartley, she's hung around till the 70s and beyond. She was a great actress, TV actress. So she was in a show called He and She. So Google that one. Just trying to see who else might have been on there. Reaction, Dundee and Calhoun, Culhane, Western. Yeah, some of these things are probably lost to history if it were not for this flip through we're doing right now. Mr. Rogers again. So that's on channel 2. Just trying to see what else might have been on in the morning on a weekday. Looks like a lot of boring, unwatchable stuff like Literary Variations and Parlin's Francis III. There's that Willie Whistle again. All right, 6 o'clock, you can watch Auto Mechanics. And they're going to explain for you 2 and 4 cycle engines. Do the folks playing at home know what those are? I think that would be like your lawnmower engines and maybe your motorcycle engines and stuff. Check that out. Fancy Dutch onions. All right, let's see what's on Thursday night. Death Valley Days is a Western. Mr. Roberts again, not Rogers. Batman, so maybe this is the night to watch Batman. Thursday nights at 7:30. Looks like it. This week in the NFL. Probably a good highlight show to catch long before ESPN and SportsCenter. So the dads would probably tune in and they make their kids turn off Batman so they could watch football highlights. What a life, huh? There's Carol Channing we saw earlier. Ironside was a pretty good crime lawyer type show, I think. There's Bewitched. We all know and love that show. Much Like I Dream of Jeannie. Those were 2 of the best shows of the 60s. Dragnet coming on at 9:30 for some propaganda. Dean Martin Variety Show. Yeah, you probably had to watch, if you were a kid, you probably had to sit through a lot of these variety shows. Your parents would probably sit there and laugh at a bunch of unfunny stuff. And you'd wish you had Batman on instead. All right, getting close to the end here. This is Friday. Watch great movies, win money. Okay. Go deliver TV guides. That's pretty funny. Merv Griffin was on. Maybe I already mentioned that. Didn't realize he was on that long ago. 7 o'clock, you can learn how to play the guitar. Any other people? It's a pretty good play. I'm sure that's what that's showing there. I think it's an Ibsen play. So even if this wasn't the best production, I bet it's good just because of the material they're working with. Wild Wild West was a very popular Western among Westerns. Nothing like the Will Smith movie, but definitely a Western that had legs and was they kept running that into the 70s and so forth. Tarzan Adventure, so maybe there's like an hour Tarzan show or something, 60 minutes. Let's see what it says. Let's see what this week's plot is about. A young doctor tries to keep his late father's clinic in operation despite a witch doctor's threats. So I guess Tarzan has to bust the witch doctor's head. Star Trek again. Maybe this is the main night it was on, and then they reran it on Sundays or something. Gomer Pyle. Yeah, Henry Gibson's The Enemy of the People. It's like Bob Hope and Don't know who she... Oh, Anita Ekberg. National Gallery Art, that's interesting. Maybe that was a... No, it's not PBS. Looks like it's on a main channel. Hondo. Some of these I see like on the free TV apps they have now. I've definitely heard of Hondo. One of the million westerns. American People. So it looks like on American People, or American Profile, they're looking at the National Gallery. Might be an opportunity to see some art if you didn't get to go to an art museum. All right, that's pretty much it, but let's check out these back ads. Free nylons when you buy some shampoo. It's pretty funny. Yvette Mimieux. I wonder if she's, yeah, she must be the one that was on the cover. Yeah, I'm not going to read the details, but there we've learned about a new actress, Yvette. And I'm sure if we read the details here, maybe she's on a TV show or a movie or something. Members only. I think that's an airline here, I think. Back then we had competition in airlines. Now we just have the illusion of competition. Right guard. It's almost the same kind I used when I was in junior high. The spray-on. Pretty sure I used right guard. I didn't have any girlfriends that looked like her, though. The Golden Years. Yeah, Gloria Swanson I've heard of. It'd be nice if they had some pictures of the people and not just text and word and drawings. Chef Boyardee Pizza, so you can make your own pizza here. That looks fun. Guess it would cook in a regular oven. I think the trick to pizza is you gotta have like a high temperature oven or something now. Some kind of coffee. That's a pretty cool illustration though. Artists out there will know that's a pretty nice line work and stuff. Of course, commercial artists often can do line work like that. All right. 7-Up. That's a great ad. So they had the crosswords all the way back then. Again, I invite you, pause your video, take a screenshot, print it out. These are all entertainment related. Of course, they're going to be from the 60s, so this would probably be a pretty tough one. And back cover. Okay, no cigarette ad. Looks like, oh, the Bananca type spray. Another thing I used in junior high. All right, this was interesting. This was fun. See you guys next time.